Marsha, we need to speak with you.
Of course, is there a
luggage
problem?
you left at LAX yesterday?
Luggage,
This is Marsha Gay Reynolds, a former JetBlue flight attendant who used her trusted crew status to smuggle nearly 70 pounds of narcotics through America's airports. By the time this footage ends, her decorated career will be over.
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I didn't leave any decision.
We need you to come with us right now.
I have a flight in 2 hours. Can you explain what this is about?
She would never board another flight. Within 48 hours, federal agents would trace the abandoned luggage back to her crew credentials, her flight records, and a smuggling operation that had been running for 5 months. 68 pounds of cocaine, $3 million in street value, 10 successful runs through the known crew member checkpoint, and one critical mistake at LAX that would expose everything. Before we go any further, how much do you actually know about who's allowed to skip the security line at airports? Think about it. Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. We expose what happens when trust gets exploited, every single week. Marsha Gay Reynolds was born in Kingston, Jamaica in 1983, the second of 4 children in a family that valued ambition above everything else. Her father, Winston Reynolds, drove a taxi through the winding streets of New Kingston 6 days a week, ferrying tourists from the airport to their resorts and back again. Her mother, Claudette, worked double shifts at a textile factory in the Kingston Free Zone, stitching garments for American department stores she would never visit. Together, they earned just enough to keep their children fed, their rent paid, and their dreams alive. The Reynolds family lived in a modest concrete block house in the Portmore suburb, where the Caribbean sun baked the streets and children played cricket in the dusty yards until dark. Marsha was sandwiched between an older brother who would eventually become a mechanic and 2 younger sisters who looked up to her like she hung the moon. From the time she could walk, everyone noticed something different about her. She was tall for her age, long-limbed and graceful, with the kind of natural athleticism that coaches spotted from across a field. By the time she was 12, Marsha was outrunning every child in her parish. By 14, she was winning regional track meets against girls 2 and 3 years older. By 16, she had set junior records in the 400-meter dash that would stand for nearly a decade. Her coaches called her a natural. Her family called her their ticket out. Her speed earned her attention beyond the island. In 2002, at just 19 years old, Marsha was selected to represent Jamaica in the Miss Jamaica Universe pageant, a competition that valued poise, elegance, and the ability to represent the nation on an international stage. She trained for months. She walked the runway with the same fierce determination she brought to the track. And when the results were announced, she placed as first runner-up, close enough to taste international recognition, but not quite enough to claim the crown. That same year, scouts from American universities came to Kingston looking for the next generation of Caribbean track stars. Jamaica had produced some of the fastest sprinters in history, and colleges were eager to recruit from the island's deep talent pool. Marsha's times caught the attention of coaches at New York University. They offered her a partial track scholarship and a chance to compete at the collegiate level. For a girl from Portmore, it was everything. In September 2002, Marsha Gay Reynolds boarded a plane from Norman Manley International Airport to John F. Kennedy International for the first time. She was 19 years old, carrying one oversized suitcase and a dream of Olympic glory. Her mother cried at the gate. Her father pressed $300 American into her hand, 2 months of savings, and told her to make them proud. At NYU, Marsha trained with the Violets track team while pursuing a degree in communications. Her coaches described her as disciplined, coachable, and hungry to prove herself. Her teammates remembered her as fiercely competitive on the track, but warm and generous off it, the kind of person who would celebrate your personal best as loudly as her own. But college athletics is brutal. Injuries accumulated, a strained hamstring in sophomore year, a stress fracture in junior year that kept her out for 6 weeks. Younger runners arrived every semester, each one faster than the last. By her senior year, Marsha had watched her Olympic dreams slip further and further away. She graduated in 2006 with a degree in communications and a decision to make. The airline industry was hiring. JetBlue Airways, the scrappy newcomer challenging the legacy carriers, was expanding rapidly out of its JFK hub. They needed flight attendants who were polished, professional, and comfortable with long hours and demanding passengers. Marsha applied in March 2007. Her pageant experience helped. Her athletic discipline showed. Her Caribbean warmth made passengers feel welcome. By May, she was in training. Her starting salary was $23,400 per year, barely enough to rent a small apartment in Queens and cover her student loans. But the job came with benefits that money could not buy, flight privileges that allowed her to travel anywhere in the JetBlue network for almost nothing, health insurance, and something Marsha valued deeply, the ability to visit her family in Jamaica whenever she wanted. For the next 8 years, Marsha Gay Reynolds was exactly what JetBlue wanted her to be. She flew routes up and down the East Coast, to the Caribbean, to California, and back. She earned positive reviews from supervisors and thank you notes from passengers. She was promoted to the premium cabin crew, working the airline's Mint business class service on transcontinental flights. Her annual salary grew to $38,000. And then she discovered another way to make money. To understand what Marsha Reynolds did, you first have to understand the system she exploited. After September 11, 2001, airport security became the most visible symbol of American vigilance. The Transportation Security Administration was created, checkpoints were fortified, and millions of Americans submitted to a new reality. Remove your shoes, empty your pockets, take out your laptop, submit to the full-body scanner, open your bag if the agent asks. The process is slow, invasive, and designed to catch threats before they reach the gate. But not everyone goes through this process. In 2011, the Transportation Security Administration introduced a program called Known Crew Member, or KCM. The logic was simple. Flight crews, pilots and flight attendants, were already vetted employees of the airlines. They had passed background checks, drug tests, and security screenings before they were ever hired. Subjecting them to the same checkpoint scrutiny as passengers was inefficient and unnecessary. KCM changed that. Under the program, uniformed crew members could bypass standard security entirely. They would approach a dedicated checkpoint separate from the passenger lines, present their airline credentials and government-issued ID, and walk directly to their aircraft. No bag screening, no X-ray machines, no questions about the contents of their luggage. The system was designed for efficiency. It assumed that anyone trusted enough to work a flight was trusted enough to carry whatever they wanted onto the plane. By 2015, more than 75,000 crew members at 43 airlines had access to KCM checkpoints at nearly 300 airports nationwide. The vast majority used it exactly as intended, a convenient way to get to work without standing in line with passengers. But the system had a flaw, a fatal one. KCM assumed trust. It assumed that uniformed crew members had nothing to hide. It assumed that background checks and employment records were enough to guarantee good behavior indefinitely. And it created a corridor through American airports where contraband could move completely undetected. All it took was one person willing to exploit that trust. The first trip happened in October 2015. Marsha had been a JetBlue flight attendant for 8 years by then. She knew every route, every layover hotel, every shortcut through every terminal. She knew which supervisors paid attention and which ones scrolled their phones at the podium. She knew how to carry herself with the casual confidence of someone who belonged. Federal prosecutors would later allege that she connected with suppliers in Los Angeles through contacts she had maintained from her time in Jamaica. The arrangement was straightforward. Marsha would fly to LAX on her regular JetBlue routes, pick up packages from a local contact at a predetermined location, and carry them back to New York through the KCM checkpoint. No screening, no questions, just a quick badge scan and a walk to her next flight. The cocaine came packed in bricks, wrapped in multiple layers of plastic, and distributed across standard airline crew luggage. Each trip, Marsha would receive between 5 and 10 kilograms. At wholesale prices, each kilogram was worth approximately $25,000. At street prices, once cut and distributed across New York City, each kilogram could generate $50,000 or more. She made 10 successful trips between October 2015 and March 2016. 10 times, she walked through the KCM checkpoint at LAX with millions of dollars worth of cocaine in her carry-on luggage. 10 times, she scanned her badge, nodded at the TSA officer, and strolled directly to her gate without breaking stride. 10 times, she boarded a JetBlue flight back to JFK with enough product to supply dealers across 3 boroughs for weeks. The money changed her life. Colleagues noticed the transformation. Her Instagram account suddenly exploded with images from expensive restaurants, designer boutiques, and tropical resorts. She moved from her modest apartment in Jamaica, Queens, to a larger place in a better neighborhood closer to Manhattan. She bought Gucci heels and Hermes scarves and handbags that cost more than her monthly salary. She never wore the same designer outfit twice. No one asked where the money came from. Her co-workers assumed she had a wealthy boyfriend. Her family assumed her airline salary had finally caught up with her expensive tastes. And Marsha kept smiling, kept flying, kept walking through checkpoints with bags full of product. The operation was elegant in its simplicity. She used her legitimate job to create a perfect cover. She exploited a system designed to trust people exactly like her. And for 5 months, it worked flawlessly. Until it didn't. March 1st, 2016. LAX Terminal 3, 2:47 p.m. Marsha had just completed a JetBlue flight from JFK. She had 4 hours until her return trip. Plenty of time to meet her contact, collect the product, and make it back to the crew room before boarding. The handoff went smoothly. A parking garage off Century Boulevard. A man she knew only by a first name. 2 black rolling suitcases identical to the ones flight crews used everywhere. Inside, 68 pounds of cocaine, divided into 31 individually wrapped bricks, secured with brown packaging tape. Street value, just under $3 million. It was her 11th run, the biggest yet. Marsha walked back toward the terminal, rolling the bags behind her, her Gucci heels clicking against the tile floor. She moved with the practiced ease of someone who had done this many times before. Badge clipped to her lanyard, professional smile ready, KCM checkpoint straight ahead. But something was different this time. TSA had received intelligence about drug smuggling through crew checkpoints. Not about Marsha, specifically, but about the vulnerability itself. As part of a random integrity operation, they had flagged several flights for enhanced screening of crew members. Her flight was one of them. As Marsha approached the KCM checkpoint, a TSA supervisor stepped forward. Random secondary screening. She needed to bring her bags to the inspection area. Standard procedure. Nothing personal. Marsha's training kicked in. She smiled warmly. She nodded agreeably. She said, "Of course, no problem at all. I completely understand." And then she asked if she could make a quick phone call first. The supervisor said yes. Marsha stepped aside, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number. The call lasted 11 seconds. Then she looked at the supervisor, looked at her bags, looked at the corridor leading deeper into the terminal. And she ran. She kicked off her Gucci heels mid-stride and sprinted barefoot down the escalator, leaving 68 pounds of cocaine and 2 designer suitcases behind. TSA officers shouted for her to stop. Passengers scattered out of her way. Security footage captured the entire scene. A uniformed flight attendant in full retreat, her professional composure shattering in an instant. She made it through the terminal. She made it to a taxi stand. She made it back to her layover hotel. The abandoned luggage told the whole story. Drug Enforcement Administration agents opened the bags within the hour. 31 individually wrapped bricks. Cocaine so pure it tested at 90% purity. Pharmaceutical grade, barely cut for distribution. The packaging materials matched samples from a known Los Angeles distribution network. And the luggage tags? They were traced directly to Marsha Gay Reynolds, JetBlue employee number 47829. Agents pulled her flight records from JetBlue's crew scheduling system. They pulled her KCM checkpoint scans from TSA databases. A pattern emerged immediately. 10 round trips to LAX over 5 months, each one coinciding with known shipments tracked by DEA intelligence. They found her social media accounts. Instagram photos from luxury resorts in Turks and Caicos. Shopping sprees at Saks and Bergdorf Goodman. Champagne toasts at Manhattan rooftop bars that charged $40 for a cocktail. All documented, all time-stamped, all impossible to explain on a $38,000 salary. The 11-second phone call was traced to a Los Angeles number linked to the distribution network. Text messages were recovered from cloud backups, coded conversations about packages and timing and drop locations. Flight crew colleagues were interviewed and described the transformation they had witnessed. The case against her built itself. But Marsha wasn't done running. The day after the LAX incident, she did something that stunned investigators. She showed up for work. She reported to JFK Terminal 5, boarded a JetBlue flight as a working crew member, and flew a round trip to San Juan, Puerto Rico, as if nothing had happened. She served drinks. She smiled at passengers. She collected meal trays. DEA agents did not learn about the flight until after she landed. The arrest warrant was still being processed. By the time they mobilized, she was already somewhere else. But Marsha knew the math. She knew how many cameras had captured her running. She knew her bags had been opened. She knew that running from TSA and then flying a commercial aircraft the next day had only made everything worse. Stories like this rarely make the news, but they should. If you want to see more investigations into institutional failures, subscribe and hit that notification bell. We cover what mainstream media ignores. March 3rd, 2016, 2 days after she ran, Marsha Gay Reynolds walked into the DEA field office in Lower Manhattan and surrendered herself to federal agents. She was accompanied by a defense attorney and a single carry-on bag containing a change of clothes. The agent who processed her arrest later described the scene in a court filing. She was calm, completely calm, like she had already accepted what was coming and just wanted it to start. She did not cry, did not argue, did not try to explain herself. She just surrendered. Marsha was read her rights and asked if she understood the charges against her. She nodded once. 1 count of possession with intent to distribute cocaine. 1 count of importation of a controlled substance. 1 count of conspiracy to distribute narcotics. The agent asked her one question. "Why did you come in?" Marsha's answer was brief. Because running was not going to change anything. She was taken to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Bail was set at $500,000, an amount she could not pay. For the first time in 9 years, Marsha Gay Reynolds would not be flying anywhere. The cooperation began almost immediately. Federal prosecutors offered her a deal, full cooperation in exchange for a recommendation for leniency at sentencing. Marsha would provide names, dates, routes, and methods. She would identify her contacts in Los Angeles and testify against them in court. She would help dismantle a network that had been moving cocaine through American airports for years. She accepted without hesitation. Over the following months, Marsha sat for dozens of interviews with DEA agents and federal prosecutors. She drew diagrams of the operation. She explained the handoff procedures, the packaging methods, the communication protocols. She identified 6 members of the Los Angeles distribution network by name and photograph. Her testimony was devastating. 2 of the men she identified received sentences of 15 years or more in federal prison. An additional 400 pounds of cocaine was seized in raids connected to her information. $300,000 in cash was confiscated from safe houses she had helped identify. Her cooperation was described by prosecutors as extensive, detailed, and instrumental in dismantling a significant trafficking operation. On April 15, 2018, Marsha Gay Reynolds appeared for sentencing in the United States District Court for the Central District of California. She had already spent more than 2 years in federal custody, awaiting trial and cooperating with prosecutors. Her defense attorney presented letters from family members, former colleagues, and community leaders in Jamaica. They described a woman who had made a catastrophic mistake, but who had taken full responsibility for her actions. They spoke of her athletic promise, her struggles with financial pressure in an expensive city, her willingness to help undo the damage she had caused. The federal sentencing guidelines for possession with intent to distribute 68 pounds of cocaine carried a mandatory minimum of 10 years. Marsha faced up to life in prison, but her cooperation changed everything. Judge Dale S. Fisher acknowledged the severity of the crime, but noted the extraordinary value of Marsha's assistance to law enforcement. Ms. Reynolds exploited a position of trust that was given to her by her employer and by the American people, the judge stated from the bench. She was allowed to bypass security screening at American airports because we believed she had earned that privilege. She used that trust to move poison through our airports and into our communities. The judge paused before continuing. But she has also done something I rarely see in this courtroom. She came forward voluntarily. She cooperated immediately and completely. She helped us arrest dangerous people and seize dangerous drugs. She has genuinely helped us stop others from doing what she did. The sentence: time served. After 24 months in federal custody, Marsha Gay Reynolds walked out of the federal courthouse that afternoon. Immigration officials were waiting for her. As a Jamaican citizen who had committed a federal felony, she was immediately subject to deportation proceedings. Within days, she was on a flight back to Kingston, the reverse of the journey she had made 16 years earlier with a suitcase full of dreams. She was barred from ever entering the United States again. JetBlue Airways issued a brief statement confirming that Marsha Gay Reynolds was no longer employed by the airline and had been terminated immediately upon her arrest. The company declined to comment further on personnel matters. The known crew member program was subsequently modified to include random enhanced screening of crew members at select checkpoints, a direct result of Marsha's case. TSA increased the frequency of spot checks and added behavioral detection protocols to crew checkpoints at major hubs. The loophole she had exploited was not closed entirely, but it was narrowed. The cocaine she attempted to smuggle on March 1st, 2016 was valued at $2.8 million at street prices. It would have been enough to supply dealers across New York City for months. Instead, it became evidence in a case that exposed one of the most significant vulnerabilities in American airport security. Marsha Gay Reynolds was 33 years old when she was sentenced, a former beauty queen who had represented her country on an international stage, a former track star who had dreamed of Olympic gold, a former flight attendant with 9 years of service and not a single disciplinary mark on her record. She had been trusted with access to secure areas of American airports. She had been trusted to care for passengers on hundreds of flights across the country. She had been trusted with a badge that let her walk through security without question. She had betrayed every single one of those trusts. The system that enabled her, known crew member, still exists today. It still allows uniformed crew members to bypass standard security screening. It still operates on the assumption that trusted employees will behave like trusted employees. But every time a flight attendant approaches that checkpoint now, there is a chance, however small, that someone will step forward and ask to see what is inside. Because of what Marsha Gay Reynolds did, and because of what she almost got away with. That case was unbelievable. But the one right here on your screen, it's worse. Much worse.